Let's examine this, shall we? A single middle-aged man with a known sex addiction invites 4 10-year-old boys from the school he works at to somewhere he calls his love shack to ask them questions about sexually transmitted diseases, their lives, and to play a few games. Someone summon Chris Hansen and get this schoolyard cook mounted upon the kitchen chair of shame, toot bloody sweet. Funnily enough, that was, in fact, the plotline of Chef's departure in between series 9 and 10 of South Park, where actor Isaac Hayes had a serious falling out with creators Matt Stone and Trey Parker about how they had attacked his religion of Scientology. Their point was that he had not had similar concerns when they attacked things like Christianity or Judaism. The character of Chef was written out of the show by using out-of-context snippets to make out that he was inviting the boys to something called a super adventure club for nefarious reasons. Now that, in essence, is South Park's humour. It is fearless. It may not have been as smartly written or as wonderfully crafted as Peak Simpsons, but it's still hilarious as it approaches its 30th year as it was when it started, unlike some shows. Not bad when you consider that episodes are written and produced just a week before they go to air. This helps them to satirise whatever weirdness is going on in the world at that particular time. Yes, indeed, we are now 328 episodes deep at the time of writing, and the show continues to take satirical swipes at both the left and the right with the subtlety of a chimp with a claw hammer. Starting out with an early internet viral hit called The Spirit of Christmas, South Park soon progressed to being one of Comedy Central's longest running shows. When it started out, it was massive. The merchandise was everywhere. A song about the chef's testicles was just 8,000 copies away from being the Christmas #1. It had a movie, which to this day remains the funniest musical ever committed onto celluloid, and it had 3 acclaimed games during the absolute juggernaut run it had at the turn of the millennium. Yeah, they're all pumped. The first one was that notorious shooter, which was one basic bitch. I sure hope that you have a predilection for throwing snowballs at turkeys, because that's all you're bloody gonna do. That was released on the PC, N64 and later the PlayStation 1 to a load of shrugs and people naysaying it, and quite rightly so. The third game was a very unoriginal and bland karting title that was programmed in just 7 months, that saw releases on the Dreamcast, the PlayStation 1, Windows and N64. That went by the name of South Park Rally, and there's a really good chance that I will never think of that game ever again as soon as I finish this video. After that game came out, there were no home South Park games until the very, very, very excellent pair of RPGs that came out in the 2010s, those being The Stick of Truth and The Fractured But Whole. Even the title's genius for that one. I have decided to pick the most non-formulaic and genre du jour avoiding of the turn of the millennium trio, as I believe it to be the most interesting. It was the second game in Acclaim's trilogy, and it's called Chef's Love Shack. Chef's Love Shack came out on the same 4 platforms as South Park Rally, with this title being coded by Acclaim's Austin studio, who also programmed the aforementioned South Park shoot-'em-up, but are probably best known for their work on the Turok series. The plotline is that the eponymous culinary craftsman has decided to start a cable access quiz show for young teen models to compete in a general knowledge quiz in order to win a thorough railing by the big man himself. Unfortunately, the models didn't show up, so the lead 4 characters from the show, those being Stan Marsh, Eric Cartman, Kenny McCormick and Carl Broflovsky, well, they are roped into the action instead. Presumably the prize is different for them should they win, but remember, Chef Hansen's gaze is never far from those who diddle in the USA. The game itself is a multiplayer trivia title with a ton of short mini-games played in between rounds. I would say if you're looking for a comparison, it's probably closest to the Mario Party games than anything else. The presentation is largely spot on. South Park's distinctly rudimentary art style isn't going to strain your 32-bit hardware. And while I'm playing the PlayStation version for this video, there's very little difference between the versions, albeit the N64 one has no loading times because of its cartridge format. All of the characters have the correct voices, which, considering most of the cast are just creators Matt Stone and Trey Parker, it's hardly a surprise, but it definitely feels authentic. The jokes and sound clips do get repeated quite quickly, and the intro never changes, but this can be skipped if you so wish. Despite the game's clear multiplayer party stylings, if you're a friendless whelp like myself, good news, you can play, and better news, you will always win as the game elects not to use AI opponents. The bad news is that the intense lowly void inside of yourself from a lack of human interaction will continue to swallow your very soul. Oh, and also, it's a bit of a silly decision not to have AI opponents because, it depletes an easy win in terms of excitement. Probably much more fun in multiplayer. I guess I'll never know. The mini-games are numerous and are a mix of styles between South Parkized classic arcade game riffs on the likes of Super Sprint and Donkey Kong, but also predictable fare like Button Bashers, Follow the Cup and Whack-A-Mole games. None of the games are particularly well done or realised when compared to the Mario Party titles, but if you do fancy playing these individually, you can enter a cheat code on the title screen, which then lets you access these little mini-games to play outside of the quiz environment. What really counts against South Park Chef's Love Shack, other than it being a very obviously half-hearted minimum effort cash-in, are the questions. Although I didn't experience this myself in my 4 playthroughs of the game to get a better idea on it, a lot of the reviews indicate that after an extended period of time, the questions do repeat quite regularly and quite quickly. More importantly, the questions themselves rely on a bit of knowledge of the early episodes of South Park. Now, not all of the questions are based on South Park, it's probably about 30%, but you'd have to have 4 pretty ardent fans of early South Park to get the most out of the game. Now, this is probably achievable in the year 2000, given how popular the show is, but in 2025 you'd be asking fans of the show to remember episodes from 25 years ago. Not bloody likely. Not only that, but no effort has been made whatsoever to localise questions for the PAL territory. So you'll have questions based on US brands and sports teams that you'll never have heard of, and you'll have to have a guess at, which speaks volumes on the lack of effort on display with this title. So yes, sadly, it's as ropey as the other 2 South Park acclaim titles. You had better stick with the PlayStation 3 era RPGs, I would say. It's an interesting curio, but don't book a stay at Chef's Love Shack. I mean, there's probably spunk on the sheets. GameSpot reviewed Chef's Love Shack in May 2000. They said fans of South Park who also happen to like trivia games would be better off keeping their 2 passions separate than indulging in Chef's Love Shack. The questions are only funny the first 2 times you hear them, the mini-games are completely uninteresting, and the repetitive speech is a real drag. A 4 out of 10 from them. Next up, and we're going to stay with millennial animation, we're going to have a look at that saccharine prick, Arthur, on the Game Boy Color. Like, subscribe. Okay, thanks, bye.